Hello and welcome to Weather on the Go. Hope everybody's having a great Monday morning out there. Happy start to the new week, and there's a lot to get to in this video here, so bear with me. We got a lot of heat here building in through the week here, through this new work week, through the middle of the country, especially across the south central plains and getting into the middle Mississippi Valley here, as we could have some record high temperatures. Also along the northern periphery of that heat, we will have some MCSs or mesoscale convective system type complexes of thunderstorms that will kind of revolve around the outer edge of this heat wave. And then we'll also look longer range toward the end of June here, and also take a short little brief look at the tropics heading in toward the third week in June and toward the July here days as well. So welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Monday morning. Let's kind of circle back to our Sunday. We did have a lot of severe weather reports across portions of the northern and central plains, and then even over here into portions of the Ohio Valley and Illinois Valley here as well. So there's a lot to get to in this video. We do have 4 tornado reports across various states here, from portions of northeastern Colorado, a couple of them up here into portions of South Dakota today, and then even up here into far northwestern Minnesota here, another tornado report here today. The National Weather Services will be surveying the damage there to see if these are actual tornadoes or not. Also 71 wind reports with 5 of them higher end, and then here 34 hail reports with some 6 that were very large in size, and here with a total of 109 severe weather reports across the board here on our Sunday. Now, as we look into our Monday here today, we do have a very complex situation developing across especially portions of the southern Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic here as we head through today. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. We do have a frontal boundary, a cold front with the shortwave trough moving in across the Pacific Northwest. We have a slight risk of severe weather extending from northwestern Minnesota down through North Dakota and into portions of northwestern South Dakota, southeastern Montana, and far northeast Wyoming here with the frontal boundary there. Maybe some scattered severe weather here possible with a couple tornadoes during that in those regions here as well. A couple isolated strong thunderstorms are also possible in portions here of Minnesota getting into northwest Wisconsin, but I'm really keeping my eye on is portions here across central and southern Wisconsin, northern portions here of Illinois, and then especially extending down here into portions of the southern Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, as we could be here seeing some significant damaging winds with this system that will be moving through, as it's called a mesoscale convective system, and this could produce some significant winds along its path here, otherwise potentially a derecho. So we'll have to see how this transpires as we head in through the day here today. The Storm Prediction Center's day 1 outlook here that came out at 1 o'clock in the morning is showing still that narrow swath from southeast Wisconsin, far northeastern Illinois, across southern Lake Michigan, getting into southern lower Michigan, far northern portions there of Indiana, north central Ohio, and then getting all the way down into southwestern Pennsylvania. That hatched 15% wind risk here, including 75 mile per hour gusts or higher in that area. So that is of concern as well. And then up here along the frontal boundary, just some general wind risk here of 15%. And as we look at the hail risk here, that narrow swath where that significant wind is, that is where that hail risk will be with that 15%. Also along that frontal boundary and that shortwave, 15%. Otherwise here, 5% elsewhere in those marginal risk type zones across portions here of the upper Midwest, getting down here toward the Tennessee Valley. And then a 5% tornado risk along the path of this potential MCS cluster or possible derecho across northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, getting into portions here of the southern Great Lakes. Also a 2% tornado risk here up in portions here of the northern plains from the Dakotas down through northeastern portions there of Wyoming into northwestern Minnesota. So let's kind of look at here kind of the synoptic look at everything, all the features kind of coming together for this type of bow echo or derecho that could be developing, or an MCS, whatever you want to call it. We do have a lot of instability in the atmosphere building as we head through the day on Monday, down into central Illinois, into central and northern Iowa, back into the Dakotas. And then getting down here into the western Ohio Valley, we got a lot of instability growing, and where you can see these reds and even these whites, you could have 4,000 to upwards of 5,000 joule per kilogram instability. And just to put some perspective on this, all you need for thunderstorms is really 500 to 1,000 joule per kilogram instability, and really for severe weather, you can have 1,000 joules per kilogram or higher. So this is almost 5 times or even 6 times what you need for severe weather. And along along the northern periphery of this here, where we call an instability gradient or an instability axis, that is where that here complex of storms will be diving east-southeastward and then southeastward here through the Ohio Valley as we head through later today. Also looking at some pretty high supercell composite values across eastern Iowa, northwest Illinois, getting up into portions here of the Chicagoland area, back toward the Quad Cities, Davenport, Iowa. The southern periphery of this complex could have some supercells developing with that tornado potential, with that 5% tornado risk across these areas. So that is something to note as we head into later today as well. Let's kind of look at what the radar here could look like as we head toward later today and into the morning hours. This is the latest HRRR that I have updated you with here early this morning. We have that cluster of storms originating across portions of Minnesota down through portions of Iowa. This will continue to kind of invigorate and push to the east and propagate east into portions of northeastern Iowa, southeastern Minnesota, into the western Wisconsin areas across the, La Crosse, Wisconsin, getting down toward Rochester, Minnesota, maybe just west-northwest of Dubuque, Iowa, Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, and then getting down here toward portions here of Iowa City, Waterloo, Iowa. These areas could be under the gun for the potential of tornadoes, even some large hail, and even some of those damaging wind gusts as we head towards the mid and late morning hours. Now, as we traverse here and towards the afternoon, the early afternoon to the mid-afternoon hours, we got that here mesoscale convective system or possible derecho starting to take shape more here as we head towards portions of southern and central Wisconsin, down through southeast Wisconsin. So Milwaukee, Madison, Wisconsin, down towards around Rockford, Illinois, Chicagoland areas could have some noisy go of it as we head through the afternoon with some very strong winds. And then this will really start to potentially bow out a little bit here as we head towards the late afternoon, early evening, as it heads down towards South Bend, Indiana, portions of western lower Michigan, across southern Lake Michigan as well, and then getting down potentially towards the Indianapolis area as well, and then this will continue here as we head towards the evening hours. Still a little bit uncertain on the exact track of that system. That is something to kind of keep in mind. A little deviation here to the southeast. It all depends on when that system starts to turn southeast and propagate southeast towards the southern Great Lakes, of where the greatest impacts will be. So do want to stay up to date with all the Storm Prediction Center outlooks here as we head through tomorrow morning. But even as we head into day two here, the Storm Prediction Center's Day 2 outlook here on your Tuesday shows that frontal boundary coming into the upper Midwest from portions of the UP of Michigan down through Wisconsin, Iowa, portions of southeastern Minnesota, and then tailing its way back here into the Central Plains. That marginal risk here along that frontal boundary is existing across those areas. Also a slight risk for severe weather across portions of eastern North Dakota into northwestern Minnesota. A little bit more upper level here kind of dynamics up in those areas, so for some scattered severe weather. Also here with kind of an elongation of that complex of storms here from today, we have that slight risk of severe weather across portions of Virginia, southern Maryland, getting into portions of eastern North Carolina, and then that marginal risk extending down farther to the south into portions of South Carolina, Georgia, and then on up towards portions there of West Virginia as well. As we head into your Tuesday, we got a lot of that heat building up, pooling ahead of that cold front. We got a lot of heat and humidity across portions here of the southeast as well, fueling that complex of storms here as it will kind of traverse its way across the mid-Atlantic and into the Atlantic basin here as we head towards the Tuesday afternoon time frame. We got a lot of instability across the mid-Atlantic here to kind of maintain those, that cluster of storms. We got a lot of instability pooling ahead of that cold front as it slides slowly to the east, and it actually starts to stall as we head toward later Tuesday, so that is something to note as well. But we do have a strong, potent cold front with a strong and potent shortwave trough kind of coming in. An upper and middle and upper level trough will kind of dig in from portions here of the northern plains. And you got a lot of the shear here intercepting some of these dynamics with the instability and that moisture out there. And that's where you can see some stronger storms. So let's take a look at that here on the composite reflectivity. This is the NAM model here. You can see the atmosphere will be pretty capped off. We have a very strong capping inversion here where we don't have a lot of lift in the atmosphere until we have some cooling aloft here toward the evening hours, and that will start to fire up some storms across portions of Nebraska, getting into Iowa here overnight. And then a very strong and potent low-level jet that I'll show you here in just a moment. It's going to feed into this here into portions of Iowa, southern Minnesota, getting into portions of the northern plains and upper Midwest here, and that will fuel maybe a complex of storms organizing here as we head towards the Wednesday morning time frame and kind of moving east-northeastward into portions of western Wisconsin and eastern Minnesota with time in those marginal risk areas. On the nose of a very strong low-level jet, that's where those storms will originate here, and we could have another complex developing. This time not expecting a derecho, but definitely some stronger, damaging wind gusts, some large hail, maybe a couple of tornadoes here as well as we head into your Tuesday evening, and especially overnight on Wednesday here, something to watch as well. We got a very strong and potent trough that will continue to slowly shift to the east here as we head even into Wednesday, and this will start to flatten out a little bit, but still some pretty strong winds here in the mid-levels, and that will support some severe weather along with all that instability and the moisture here. You got, temperatures rising well into the 90s here on Wednesday ahead of that cold front that will kind of stall out on Tuesday, but start to slide more southeast through the day on Wednesday. You got all that moisture pooling up ahead of that front, moisture well into the 60s, some lower 70 dew points into Wednesday afternoon and evening. So that will be something to note here, as a lot of heavy rainfall will also be expected with these storms as they move from west to east. We got all that instability, like I said, with all those temperatures rising in the 90s. You got all the dew points well into the 60s, low 70s, and there's no surprise along that cold front. That's where we'll have in the yellows and reds here, we could have 3,000 to nearly 4,000 joule per kilogram instability. So more than enough for some pretty strong thunderstorms as we head towards the Wednesday night into Thursday morning time frame. And I'll show you that here. We got the complex kind of lingering up here into portions of eastern Minnesota, portions of northwest Wisconsin into Lake Superior as we head towards late Wednesday afternoon, and then that'll kind of continue as we push here into portions of northern Wisconsin here towards the evening hours, and then more storms will start to fire up along the cold front down through central Iowa, eastern Iowa, and then getting down towards Kansas City here as we head towards the early evening hours here around the dinner time frame. Could have some supercell thunderstorms with some rotation here, some tornadoes possible, maybe even some large hail, and also that damaging wind threat as well. We could also have kind of a little complex of storms developing into southern Georgia as well. Nothing too significant with that. Maybe some heavy rain, some frequent lightning, some gustier winds, and maybe some small hail, but nothing too significant from that. The main severe weather kicker on Wednesday into Thursday morning will be with that cold front across the upper Midwest. And like I said, during this time frame along that cold front, we'll have a very strong, potent low-level jet continuing to organize just south and east here of this trough and this upper level low spinning across the southern Canadian prairies, and that's where you can expect all that strong weather here across portions here of Iowa, Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, and then potentially even getting into portions of northwestern and northern Illinois as well as we head in towards the overnight hours here into Thursday morning. As we head towards Thursday morning here, we have this trough kind of starting to broaden out a little more. You're not seeing a big dip in the jet stream here in the mid-levels, so not expecting a big severe weather threat across the Ohio Valley with this cold front continuing to, trudge its way to the east, but we're not expecting, a huge outbreak, but a couple of severe thunderstorms can't be ruled out here into Indiana, portions of Ohio, getting down into Kentucky or Tennessee as we head towards Thursday afternoon, so that will be something to note. As we head through the next 72 hours, more so the next 3 days or so, all the way through here of the morning hours on Thursday this week, you can expect to see some decent rains here across portions of the upper Midwest, the central Great Lakes, getting down through the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic with some of these complexes of storms. And then along that cold front, some heavier rain across Wisconsin, portions of Iowa, getting into southeastern Minnesota, through lower Michigan, and portions here of northern and northeastern Ohio, and then extending farther over toward the Mid-Atlantic. Could expect here upwards of an inch or so of rain here, pretty common across those areas, and also pretty active across portions of southwestern and southern Canada, where across Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then back over toward Alberta, where they could have several inches of rain, especially in southern and central Alberta there, where they could have rainfall amounts upwards of 3 to 4 inches in those areas. So some pretty significant rain up into the Canadian provinces as we head towards the next 3 days. Beyond there, as we head towards the Father's Day weekend, we got another signal here. The Climate Prediction Center 6 to 10 day temperature outlook is showing a pretty strong ridge starting to reestablish, like I said here, and I've been saying the last few days, across portions here of the Great Plains, down through the portions of the Deep South, and then up into the Midwest, and then kind of moving eastward toward portions here of the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic as we head towards later in the period, toward the 22nd of June. And then we got another trough digging down into the Pacific Northwest and West Coast, just west of this ridge. And this ridge actually could be a lot stronger than the one we had previously as we're having right now, and moving through this week. This one could be a little bit stronger with more widespread 100s possible. Some of the guidance is trending that way, so that is something to kind of keep an eye on as we head towards that Father's Day weekend and then a little bit beyond. But underneath that ridge, you're not going to be expecting a lot of rainfall. You got a lot of sinking air. You're not going to have a lot of lifting of those air parcels, so not a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity. Sure, you might have a couple of popcorn type storms along the the periphery of those of that heat wave, but you're not going to see any like organized derechos, nothing like that during this time frame. But we do have the monsoon season starting to heat up a little bit more in the four corners that are where above normal precipitation is expected. You got here some above normal precipitation up toward Idaho, the Intermountain West, and the Pacific Northwest during this period here from June 18th through Father's Day itself and into the 22nd time frame as well. And like I said, as we head towards Friday here, getting in towards that Father's Day weekend, the start of Father's Day weekend here, Friday, June 17th, you got that ridge starting to really reestablish across the central and southern plains. The jet stream here, the upper level jet, will really start to amplify back into southern Canada during this time frame, and that will ensure a lot of the heat starting to build north once again, and that will here kind of be verified here on the National Weather Service's kind of day 5 maximum temperature map here. You can see temperatures well into the 90s here across portions of the central plains into the Missouri Valley. You got some widespread 100s here around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, getting down into southern Texas, eastern Texas, and then you got all those hundreds across here, the desert Southwest as well. And then that jet stream will continue to amplify even further to the north and even potentially central Canada as we head towards Saturday, June 18th, the day before Father's Day, and that will even spread northward with all that warmth and the humidity. We got more hundreds down into Texas, maybe into portions here of even Nebraska, western Kansas, and we got 90s, mid-90s, and upper 90s all the way up into the Dakotas, maybe even southern Canada during this time frame as well. So it's a lot of heat to work with, and this will be, most of the country will be under some type of heat unless you're in the northeast or the west coast here in the Intermountain West, where you're not going to see much in the way of heat because of those troughs. But even as we head into Father's Day itself, that upper level jet will continue to even feed a little farther to the north into portions of northern Ontario, and then kind of diving back down into the northeast here, and then kind of moving up through portions of the Intermountain West underneath that ridge. And I think this is pretty significant. We got a lot of lower 100s being signaled for Sunday, Father's Day itself on June 19th, all the way up into the Midwest here, into portions even of portions of Minnesota, the Dakotas, especially South Dakota, and then getting southward into the central and southern plains is around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Continued lower 100s across those areas, even up toward Wichita Falls. Still got some hundreds down toward the Phoenix area as well, and even some 90s starting to spread east across the southeast and into portions of the Ohio Valley as we head toward Father's Day as well. And then here, even further down the pike here, down into getting towards the final days here of June, the third week in June or so, the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook here in the Climate Prediction Center. This ridge will have some staying power. There's a lot of signs that this is going to stick around as we head towards the end of June, and that will be continued with above normal, temperatures across the middle of the country from the central and southern plains eastward into the southeast, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley, with that trough continuing to kind of spin around in portions here of the Pacific Northwest and West Coast. Another trough kind of spinning around across portions of the interior Northeast as well, especially as you get up towards New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine areas with below normal temperatures during that time frame. And then as we head towards June 20th, 26th, underneath that ridge, don't be expecting once again any rainfall for the most part. Maybe a couple thunderstorms here and there, but mostly below normal precipitation. Also below normal on most of the West Coast here into the western portions of the United States. That monsoon season can still be alive here across the four corners, and then maybe a little bit of an active northern jet here we'll have to watch toward the end of June, and that could be a signal once again for another type of windstorm as this kind of breaks down toward the end of June that I'm eyeing. It's kind of hard to say this far out, but there is a potential for some more severe weather as we head into towards the end of June and the last week of June. as this heat wave, the northern end of it at least, will start to potentially break down across the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and the Great Lakes region. So that will be something to watch. And then looking, like I said, as we head towards that 19th through the 26th time frame, we got that heat wave across the middle of the country, the trough off the west, the trough off the portions of the northeast. And then we have a kind of a signal, kind of turning our attention to the tropics a little more now. Still the signal that we've had for the last several days here, coastal portions of Texas down through southeastern Texas, eastern Texas, into portions of coastal Louisiana, into the western Gulf Coast. We are seeing here a signal still of above normal precipitation, and that could mean some tropical rains, maybe even a storm starting to organize here. So that will be something to watch as we head towards that 26th time frame in June, toward late June. And speaking of storms, we have that storm that is off the southern and southwestern Mexican coast here, with a 60% chance or higher of organizing over the next 4 or 5 days and moving to the north and west. And behind that, across portions here of just off the coast of Central America, we have at least a 40% chance here or lower of another system here potentially developing as we head, or at least an area of interest across these areas off the Central American coast as we head towards the next 4 or 5 days as well. And then looking here into portions of near Central America on the east side here, just down south of the southern Gulf. We are watching here a period of, just east of Panama here, maybe northeast of Panama, getting over towards, eastern Central America, like I said here. Another area of interest, maybe at least a 40% chance or lower of development in this area in the next 4 or 5 days. So that will be something to watch. And this could be the start of what I was talking about in the central and west Gulf and heading towards Texas and Louisiana. Still too far out to say. No panic here. We're not talking about a depression, a storm, or a hurricane at this time. Maybe even just some tropical rains across that area here, but we'll have to keep an eye on this here as it heads through the next several days. A lot of warm waters still reside across portions of the Gulf Coast into the Atlantic Basin. Some warmer waters where those systems are across portions of western and southwestern Mexican coast there, but some cooler waters kind of as they push to the northwest. So those should potentially weaken some as they head off the west here, coast there of the Baja of California. So we'll have to kind of watch that as it kind of moves to the north and west in the next several days. But I knew that was a lot to get to here. Do be safe with all that severe weather here, especially with those big windstorm potential here across the southern Great Lakes. And also with that heat wave out there, a lot of heat. So do be sure to keep an eye on your pets, your neighbors, and everybody here, and stay hydrated. And do be sure to like my video and subscribe to my channel here as well, as I will here try to get to 200 subscribers. So do please help me out. I appreciate that very much. And I hope everybody has a great work week and especially a great Monday out there. Thank you.